What is it? Juliet always liked the unveiling of Marchand's paintings of her. Go ahead, he said. It's a birthday gift. Juliet lifted the cloth and found a painting of a city. She frowned, expecting to see a painting of herself. She cocked her head, confused. It's my Paris. Marchand had walked up behind her. I painted it for you. He was standing so close that Juliet felt the fabric of his flowing pants scrape her ankle. It's what I see every day when I'm there. I wanted you to see Paris through my eyes. I don't do landscapes, so my apologies if it isn't as good as what you're used to seeing from me, but I assure you it's a special painting. Do you like it? He asked. Marchand seemed self-conscious and began cleaning his glasses with a hanky he had pulled from his pocket. She nodded. He was tall, so she debated before she looked up at him so close, knowing what it might mean. No one has ever painted anything for me. Oh, come now, he laughed. I've painted about 20 portraits of you. Juliet shook her head. You've never painted anything for me, and you know it. His gift had emboldened her. She could sense how much he wanted her to like it. By now, Juliet knew that Marchand had two gazes. The artist's gaze that glossed over her like an object, and the gaze of a man. As he looked down at her, this was the latter. They stood silently looking at each other, knowing what was about to happen next, but neither making a move toward it. Then Juliet observed his leg twitch. In one movement, he picked her up and carried her to the daybed, gently laying her on it and sitting on the edge next to her. Juliet's body memorized all the places where their bodies met. Her hip, his thigh, his stomach, her rib. His hand brushed her breast as his arm moved across her. All decorum about asking to touch her swept away. I've never been kissed, she said, touching his lips with her finger, surprised that she felt entitled to do so. For my birthday, I might like that. He leaned down, and his lips touched hers. The kiss was light, and when their lips parted, Juliet looked into his eyes.
The one-eyed snakes don't bluff. Should've left with.
Early one morning, as we were beginning our day's play in the backyard, Jim and I heard something next door in Miss Rachel Haverford's collard patch. We went to the wire fence to see if there was a puppy Miss Rachel's rat terrier was expecting. Instead, we found someone sitting looking at us. Sitting down, he wasn't much higher than the collards. We stared at him until he spoke. Hey yourself, said Jim pleasantly. I'm Charles Baker Harris, he said. I can read. So what? I said. I just thought you'd like to know I can read. You got anything needs reading, I can do it. How old are you? Asked Jim. 4.5? Going on 7? Shoot, no wonder then, said Jim, jerking his thumb at me. Scout yonder's been reading ever since she was born. She ain't even started school yet. You look right puny for going on 7. I'm little, but I'm old, he said. Jim brushed his hair back to get a better look. Why don't you come over, Charles Baker Harris? He said. Lord, what a name. It's not any funnier 'n yours. Aunt Rachel says your name's Jeremy Atticus Finch. Jim scowled. I'm big enough to fit mine, he said. Your name's longer'n you are. Bet it's a foot longer. Folks call me Dill, said Dill, struggling under the fence. Do better if you go over it instead of under it, I said. Where'd you come from? Dill was from Meridian, Mississippi, was spending the summer with his aunt, Miss Rachel, and would be spending every summer in Macomb from now on. His family was from Macomb County originally. His mother worked for a photographer in Meridian, had entered his picture in a beautiful child contest and won $5. She gave the money to Dill, who went to the picture show 20 times on it. Don't have any picture shows here, except Jesus ones in the courthouse sometimes, said Jim. Ever see anything good? Patsy, can I get you anything? It took a moment before Patsy realized Dottie was in the room. Hon, why didn't you call me sooner? Dottie said. Oh, Dottie, thanks for coming. Sister, I didn't even know. It just hit me. Dottie caressed Patsy. Honey, I can't believe it. Well, it's true. The doctor says I've had a nervous breakdown. I ain't my old self for sure. I feel like I've had the hell beat out of me. He says I gotta stay home and rest. Wouldn't that be funny? What? Me, leading a normal life. Dottie, I gotta work. I have to keep this family together. The kids need new clothes, and Hun, all that can wait. Tell me what happened. Blackouts. They just started. Last night, I lay in bed shaking with the walls coming in at me. I got on my knees and prayed that God would let it pass. Patsy sat at her dressing table and removed her wig, revealing the cloth pressure band she wore around her head and the still highly visible scars from the auto accident. Dottie went to assist her and started to remove the headband. No, leave it. It relieves the headaches. They've been so bad, all that helps is laying my head against the cold bathroom tiles. Patsy stared in the mirror. You can count the years on my face. Oh, Patsy. Sister, I ain't looking for pity. And you won't be getting any from me. There was always music at Patsy and Charlie's house, and the radio was playing softly in the background. Crazy came on. That's your big one, said Dottie softly. You know what? I still can't stand it. It's made you the biggest crossover star in the business. That don't help when I'm laying in bed being ignored. Charlie drinking again? Yeah, but when did he stop? It's funny, ain't it? What? I've become a captive of my own ambition. Savage felt his heart seize. Pressed against the man's legs were two small children, a boy and a girl. His hands were wrapped around their shoulders, hugging them tightly against him. Keep it together. He couldn't call 911 and take the chance of sirens freaking the guy out, not with the kids still in the line of fire. He quickly ran around to the back of the shop and go and heard the engine running before he saw the Chevy Impala, tucked in the shadows off the parking asphalt. He saw a woman in the driver's seat. Since she wasn't wearing pantyhose on her head, she obviously wasn't slated to join the actual robbery. She was just there to drive the man in the store out of there. He crouched down and ran back around to the front of the store. He held his cig at his side and began whistling. He opened the door and called out, "Good evening, Mr. Patil." And the man in the pantyhose whirled around, his gun leading, as the little girl yelled, "He'll hurt you!" The man froze for the longest instant of time in Savage's memory. Savage saw the father grab the children and hurl them to the floor and fall over them. Then Savage's cig was up and he fired. The rule was always to fire only when you intended to kill. But this bullet didn't go into the man's chest. It went into his shoulder. The man screamed, fell hard to his knees, clutching his shoulder, and his .22 went flying. Savage listened for the Impala's engine to rev, for the car to roar out of there. But he didn't hear anything except a car door slamming shut. He yelled, "Mr. Patil, get down!" Savage dropped to the floor and was rolling when the door burst open and a submachine gun started blasting bullets. He heard Mr. Patil scream from behind the counter, knew he hadn't been fast enough, and she'd hit him. He heard the kids screaming, heard the father's deep voice, hazed over with fear, saying, "It's all right. It'll be all right." He came up and fired, hit the woman square between the eyes as she swung the gun around to him. The submachine gun hit the linoleum floor.